This is interesting. We've done several interviews over the years, and this is one of the main questions that people will ask us. How do your whole work-life balance? How do you do that? So working with your wife, especially,
I was going to mention, I believe
it's
your wife,
interesting,
yes.
right? And she runs all the money, so I got to be really careful. Well, she cut me off.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Demystifying Cosmetics. Today, we're going to go behind the scenes with Ed Schack, the founder of EES Cosmetic Ingredients, to explore the journey of building a company that is foundational to cosmetic product development. We're going to discuss challenges of launching and scaling in a competitive industry, the lessons learned along the way, and dive into how to navigate ingredient sourcing and customer expectations. A little about our guest, Ed Schack. He's managed accounts for billion-dollar businesses, including oversight of global sales, marketing, manufacturing, and distribution campaigns. He now owns and operates EES Cosmetics, serving as the CEO and sales EVP since 2024. Ed has over 40 years of experience in the cosmetic industry, and with his wife, Ellen, participates in philanthropic endeavors and creating strategic partnerships with nonprofit organizations that place a high value on social responsibility. Thank you for joining us, Ed.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Jennifer. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Definitely. We had touched base earlier, and I think the audience would love to hear a little bit about your journey because it wasn't very straightforward how you entered into the cosmetic industry.
Yeah, it's a crazy path, but I'll try to keep it short. I was a history major, and I was a swimming coach in high school, and my goal for my career was to be a college professor. And then also a coach on a collegiate level swimming. And my head coach on the swimming team at the time was also the history department mentor at the high school I had just left. So he had said to me, Ed, when you're ready and we have a position open in the history department, we'll get you set up in our high school and we'll start there. Well, that position never opened up. And I decided that I had to start my teaching career. I started in parochial grammar school, taught there for 1 year. And when I realized that I was going to be poor the rest of my life, I decided that I probably needed a career change, although I love teaching. And every chance I get a chance to teach today, I do that.
Yeah. I was going to ask. I was like, I'm glad that it was the financials that broke you and not the students. So.
Oh, no. No, just great rapport with my kids and just I love that whole section of it. So I got on a fast track. And so I was a history major in a chemical field. And I just decided the only way I was going to be really successful in sales was to be really curious, very humble, and just ask a lot of questions. Since I did not have a chemistry degree, and typically a chemistry degree was required at the time to be in sales. So that's how I started. And that was back in 1983 when I started in my sales career. So it's been a number of years.
Wow, that's great. So what inspired you to go into cosmetics specifically?
Well, it seemed a natural progression with me. The first company I worked for, I was handling the cosmetic, food, and pharmaceutical industry. And then when I started working at Whitaker, Clark & Daniels just a couple of years later, I was focused more on just cosmetics and pharmaceutical. And then when I was having just success after success in the cosmetic industry, my bosses decided to focus me just on cosmetics. And that was really the pyramid. It started out down here. We just focused and got finished in the cosmetic area. And I just took a real liking to it. I love the people. The people are fantastic to work with. And it was just a natural progression from where I started.
Yeah. And what was that switch then that you went to, I'm really good at selling, to, I want to start my own business and teach other people to sell?
Yeah, so about 30 years ago, words are so important. Words can either lift somebody up or words can really hurt somebody in just a few words. One of the companies I was representing, the vice president at the time, said, Ed, everybody in the cosmetic industry. Why don't you just do this on your own? And that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And for 5 years, that thought just laid in my head. I said, how am I going to do this? How does this get happen? It's just
Yeah.
weird. I don't know if I can ever own my own business. And so 5 years, that thought, that little seed just laid in my head. And from that seed, just things developed and opportunities arrived as a result of it. But it was just one person planting a little seed.
And in terms of, when that seed was planted, were there areas that in the business that you were working at that you thought, I could, this isn't the way it should be. I can do this better. Were those learning experiences that in that 5 years, you really were like, all right, I'm going to remember this. And maybe that's something I'm going to build into the company I create.
Yeah. So one of the things I noticed in distribution, especially with the people I was competing with, is distributors typically, when they're representing other people's products, a lot of them are taking the products, putting them in their own packaging, and that supplier never has contact with the end customer, their customers, because the product is packed in the distributor's packaging. So one of the things that I wanted to do when I went into distribution on my own and started as a smaller company was to remove all the boundaries and the blinders and just be totally transparent, not only with the supplier, but also with the customer. Because I felt like if I can bring the supplier and keep a face on the supplier in the industry and just use my networking, it would be a win-win for everyone. I could connect the supplier with the end customer. Everyone's happy because the full chain of command is complete in the middle of that. So with me, when I decided to start our own company, I said, look, we're doing everything transparent. We're keeping things open, honest, and we're letting everyone into the program as it rolls out. Everyone into the process. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to do, which was very different from what everyone is doing, even to this day. A lot of people still repacking and they lose focus on who that final customer is with their product.
Does that also then, it doesn't require you to maybe have your staff be highly trained in every single product in every single portfolio, and maybe you can carry a larger portfolio? Is that some of the advantage to working in that system as well?
Yeah, so we started with just one company years ago. So this is actually our 25th year. Ellen started the business in 2000, so we are celebrating our 25th year now. I joined the company in 2004, but we started with one principle. We keep adding principles, and the nice thing is we tell our principals, look, if you've got a great product that you could reproduce on a regular basis, and you can stand by it technically, and make a consistent product, we can sell it. So we rely on the technical skills of the principals that we're representing to provide us with the technical knowledge, technical expertise, the regulatory information. And then over the years, my staff, from working from one principal to another principal, learned the jargon, learned the industry language, and just picked up everything they needed to do to now be able to take a brand new principal on and help them through the process and getting their technical regulatory paperwork in place to go into the cosmetic industry. Everything has changed today from 20 years ago. And the amount of information from a regulatory standpoint is crazy. But my staff today is professionally trained in that area because of past experience.
And going back a little bit to just the foundational, starting your own business, what were some of the biggest challenges in transitioning from this idea of I should start my business to actually execution?
Yeah, I think the biggest obstacle, and it is for a lot of people, is fear. I had a great job. I had kids going into high school. And I had a lot of people telling me, look, you've got a great job. You've got, you're well respected in the industry. Why do you want to make these changes? Why do you want to upset the apple cart? That was probably the biggest issue and then making that first decision to say, I'm going to go. The biggest decision to start a business is saying that I'm going to start a business. So it's just deciding that you're going to move forward, and making that decision is most important. Once you put your mind to it, once you've trained your mind to, all right, we're going to go now, it just seems like things fall better in place. So fear, definitely number one, and then making the decision to actually move forward.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think making that decision to move forward and the repetitiveness of it also mentally diminishes the fear that one has? If you're just like, yeah, no, this is what we're doing now. My brain has told me over and over, this is what we're doing now. I'm not fearful of this.
Well, it's so funny because today everyone talks about manifesting things,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's very popular. But envisioning things is really important. Visualization, and I've used that throughout my life in sports. When I was swimming, I envisioned myself, getting that medal at the end of the race, and
Yeah.
just preparing your mind for positiveness is really, really important when in any aspect of life. So I think that's really important. Once you set your mind to something, and you stay on the positive side of it, it's very effective, very, very powerful. So I think it's important.
And we talked about your experiences selling cosmetic ingredients and kind of how that shaped a little bit of, how you wanted to operate in your own business. But, were there any personal values or experiences outside of that you used to help shape the mission and the products that you were carrying?
Yeah, so it goes back to a point I made a little bit earlier. I walked into a chemical industry with a history major, and I decided that the only way I was going to be really successful was number one, is to take on humility. Number two, to be very curious. And number three, to be very positive, be really confident too. So just being kind to people, I think is really important because people want to do business with people that they care about. You heard that whole adage, people buy from people that they care about. So you establish a relationship first before you decide that you're going to make that person a customer. So I was really curious and I asked a lot of questions. And because of that, and because I took that position of being humble, I think humility is probably one of the greatest attributes to a very successful salesperson. And it's counterproductive. But I think if you think about it and you understand the full concept of humility, you understand that when people are humble, they're usually coming from a position of strength. So humility and just being curious is probably the two main qualities that I took forward from my sales career into starting my own business. It's two of the highlights of the things that we look for in new people that we work with.
I was just going to ask, and when you think about setting up the culture of the company and how that is reinforced, not only looking for people that maybe have the ability to show humility and conversely be confident. What are some of the aspects that you've learned in shaping people on your team to be exceptional salespeople, exceptional humans? What are some of those skills that you've learned and imparted on those around you?
Well, a couple things. I've learned that I have to be a really good listener. And I always wasn't a good listener, starting out. But understanding that we have a full team and everyone has a different personality. Everyone's carrying something and everyone's coming from a different place. So it's really important that I be really sensitive to what that person is feeling that day. Where have they come from? Where are they going? What are they struggling with? So that's really important to me. I have to be a great listener. When I'm not listening, it almost seems like I'm disconnected from the people that I'm working with, and there's a sense of not being genuine as a part of not listening well to the people that you're working with. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I need to continue to work on and be really good at. I think I'm getting better and better. One of the things I love too is something that's called kind candor. It's something I learned from Gary V. Vaynerchuk. He's a really big podcaster. And he said, look, you can be really kind, but be really honest with the people that you're working with. And there's a big difference because CEOs and bosses typically will use their authority in many cases to get the people that they're working with to do what they need them to do. But I think it's really important once you set out the goals and the expectations with the workers or the people that you're working with on your team. We call it, they're our team. We don't call them workers. See, these are, and we refer to them as our family too. So once you set out those expectations, if the expectations aren't being met, we have those candor conversations,
Yeah.
and we lay out the expectations about how the conversation's going to go, and we leave space for people to respond to it. So I think it's really, really important to be very honest, and but very kind at the same time. You can do it in a way where you're not hurting people. You don't want to break a person's spirit. You want to lift the person up, help them make the changes that they need to for the success of the business, but at the same time, don't hurt the spirit.
Yeah, I love that. I, a number of years ago, became familiar with radical candor, and something I disliked strongly about radical candor was there was a TED Talk where a woman said her boss approached her and you mentioned maybe you'd want to take some public speaking courses. And she said, no, I'm fine. And her boss said, no, let me put it differently. You sound stupid when you say so much. And I always thought, I was like, that is so mean, like, and I always thought that set the wrong message about radical candor, where it's almost that apology up front, like, sorry, I'm going to offend you right now. So I really like that concept of kind candor.
Yeah, and another person who I absolutely love, big fan of Brene Brown. She's got a series called Dare to Lead, and she's another one. I would highly recommend, people learning more about Brene Brown and her leadership skills and her style. She's the same way. She's upfront, but she's kind and she's caring when delivering, especially very difficult conversations.
Yeah, great. I guess going back to what you mentioned in terms of, building a relationship because, you're creating strong relationships for ingredient suppliers and, you're going to want to buy from people you like. How do you approach that? Let's say you want to onboard a new ingredient supplier. What do you do in that approach to build that relationship?
Well, it's interesting because at least once a month we get a call from a new supplier.
They're seeking you out. Okay.
And that's the really cool thing. So we have people who come to us, but one of the things that I tell all of our principals, when you invest in EES, we invest in the world. So we are taking a portion of our money and, long before social responsibility and all of those things are the buzzwords, long before that, EES from its beginning, from its inception, was giving back. We always made sure that we're on mission with the money that we were making. So we tell that to our principals, and we put our money where our mouth is. We've built water wells in Cambodia. We've built water wells in Vietnam. We've done things globally. We've done things on a national level.
Yeah.
We do things locally for some of our workers in our business. If they have a special charity that they care about, that's near and dear to their heart, we ask them, look, what can we do to support you and that charity that you want to support? So we're constantly looking for ways to give back. We think it's really, really important. And I think that's one of the keys to our success too. And that's, so we have principals that are looking for us, which is really good. We've got a great LinkedIn presence. So our social media area is doing very well. But when we have them and we're talking to them, we express the fact that, look, we've got a strong culture in our business. And this is our culture. This is how we want to do things. We want to make sure we're aligned right up front. And when that alignment is there, we move forward with that principle. We also make sure that we're not competing with principals inside our own portfolio. So whoever we have, if we're selling oils, we are not going to sell two types of oils from two
Different
competitors.
Yeah.
So we try to make sure that everyone complements each other.
Good. And you're giving back to me with your social media presence, because ours is not great. So there's an instance right there.
Well, it's great. You pay it forward and, down the road, you get the dividend, which is cool.
Nice. And, when you are approached by people in terms of level setting for, kind of the social responsibility, what are some other aspects that you look for in terms of a great partnership?
Well, we want total honesty. We want, and I know this sounds selfish, but we want loyalty too. Loyalty is really, really important to us because we are very loyal to the principals that we work with, to our staff, to our customers, and so that's really important. We want people who are all in with us, and we're constantly doing checks with our principals to make sure that at the end of the year we do a scorecard every year, and we rate our principals just like our customers rate us. So that's really, really important. We have to be aligned. If we're not aligned, we're not going to be successful. So that's probably the key to success with us.
And in terms of transparency, that really goes into a lot of, where are you sourcing this from? What are those aspects that you look for the ingredients, the individuals you work with or the companies you work with to be transparent on?
Yeah, so paperwork. Today, doing business in the industry we are today, the industry demands that we know where a product starts and where a product finishes, especially if you're in the certified organic or the RSPO certification that's out there. So we have to make sure that our principals fully understand what is required from our customers today. And the regulations are getting tougher, but we want to make sure that they're able to bring their product to the marketplace. You may have a great product, but if it's not going to fit into the regulatory statuses that are out there, the NMPA in China, everything that we meet out with Prop 65 in California. So if the product is not going to meet the regulatory or meet a regulatory standard, we're just not going to be able to work with them. So that's really, really important. We have those honest, open conversations up front to make sure that, hey, the quality is there, you can make it consistently, but will you meet the regulatory standards that we have?
Yeah. That leads nicely into the next question in terms of innovation and creativity. So, I'm seeing a lot of emerging new chemicals that maybe don't have a robust toxicology profile to them. There's still a lot of risk, but the cosmetic industry is a little less risk averse than, let's say, pharmaceutical drug. How do you balance that creativity in product development with the demands of the business, but also the values that you've established as part of how you run your business?
Well, we get to be really picky about who we work with. And I think that's part of the process of canvassing principles that come forward. And that's definitely a big part of the process in making sure we have the right people for us. And then just making sure that their staff meets well and interacts really well with our staff is really important too. So the communication between the two organizations. But in looking for new products, we often turn to what our customers are asking us for. And we've seen this trend over the years of moving more to the natural side, getting away from the synthetic based materials. And we've done that with the clays that we work with the waxes that we're working with. We work with a candelilla wax, which for years was using sulfuric acid as part of its process. They no longer do that. They're now using citric acid, which is so much healthier for the plant itself, the people harvesting the wax, and the people who are manufacturing the wax. We're working with a biosurfactant company now, which is very successful for us. So, we listen to our customers, and our customers are moving us more towards this natural, sustainable. Let's get away from the petrochemicals. Let's get away from the synthetics as much as we can.
And I had a meeting with some of your sales team a while back, and I'd love for you to tell the story about the candelilla wax because they had shared with me how there was a shortage, but you had partnered with a company that treated their workers ethically, correct? And so why don't you tell that story? Because I thought it was really great to hear.
So the company is a Mexican-based company. It's called Multiceres. And one of the things that they do is they're totally aligned with what we do as far as investing in the people who are working with us. So the candilleros who harvest candelilla wax, these are groups of families that are living in the area where the wax is harvested. And they've created this little co-op for themselves where they go out and they harvest the candelilla for the different wax manufacturers out there. One of the reasons why they love to work with Multiceres is providing schooling in most cases. They're providing healthcare, and they're just providing a lot of benefits to the families themselves who are doing the harvesting, as opposed to the other manufacturers who are just paying them a fair wage. So they're not only being paid a fair wage, but they're given all these other incentives because Multiceres wants these people to thrive.
Yeah.
And they want the best of the best. Now, you've got, just like with anything, when you've got people out there, you could have people who do a really great job and people who are just doing it for the sake of doing the job. So with these incentives, it just encourages those families to not only stay with Multiceres long term, through the different relationships, the father, son, the kids go through the business for themselves, but it just maintains the product consistency and it maintains the educational system for these people. And there's just so many more benefits, which is really cool. We love that. And that's one of the things we really like to promote with our customers.
Yeah. And it was a perfect example of having a shortage of material because of a lack of a workforce, but you guys partnering with somebody that had programs in place that supported their workers, and you ended up having a supply that maybe many others were not able to meet. So I thought that was such a great story.
Yeah, it was cool.
What do you think, what has been the most surprising aspect of running a cosmetic ingredient business?
I think it's the people, because you show up to work every day and you never know what you get. You think that you know people, and there's also problems that come up. You'll have a customer problem, a customer issue with deliveries. One of the biggest issues that we had right after COVID was trying to get material out of Europe. What normally took us 4 to 6 weeks to get here was taking us 14 to 18 weeks to get here. So you run into these situations that are just created and they come up as an emergency and you have to react to it. So those incidental things that come up are constant challenges to the business. But just, when you're working with different people, especially when you're introducing new people, getting the new people and getting the team to work together, stay within the culture, stay within the mission. That's always, sometimes difficult to do. We've got a great team now. We've got an amazing, amazing team. We've spent a lot of time the last couple of years working on culture, working on mission, and just getting everyone to invest into what we're doing. So we're in a great place right now, really set up well for 2025. But yeah, it's the incidentals that come up, and then it's just everyday things. You get a customer who just can't get material for whatever the reason is, and we have to try to help them out.
Yeah. And so, what happens in those kind of instances? I'm always curious when, a container ship got stuck in the Suez Canal, right? And all these shipments were delayed. How do you navigate those really tough situations?
Well, in the case of when we were getting the delays with the shipments, it affected everyone. So there was no one not going through it. So the customers totally understood what was going on, and they were very, very patient with us. But in those cases where we can't get a delivery on time, we will air freight material if we have to. There's always a way. We had a situation with Estee Lauder where it was a Friday night and we couldn't get a trucker into our warehouse to get material out to Estee Lauder. And we had a friend of ours who just started a trucking company. It was his first pickup. I said, "Here we go. Here's your first job. Get this out to Estee Lauder first thing in the morning." And the Lauder people could not believe that we were able to turn that around and do it so quickly. And that's the great thing about being a smaller but mobile and energetic company. We're quick to solution too. We'll have issues that come up, but we're quick to solution because we don't have to go through this red tape of pushing it up to the director. The director has to push it up to the vice president, and, all that other stuff. We can make decisions very quickly. So that's what we do. We just, whatever the problem is, we try to quickly resolve.
Okay, real quick. Raise your hand if you have dealt with active instability. If you have ever opened a jar of retinol cream and smelt an off odor, or noticed your formula went dark brown, chances are you are dealing with active instability. It's never fun when the formula you've been working on goes south and the due date is only days away. That's why we've encapsulated the trickier ingredients to work with so you can kick the stability struggle to the curb. From retinol to vitamin C, we make it easier to work with those ingredients that typically give you that 3 p.m. headache. The cellulose shell shields the active from outside exposure. Things like air and light that are likely to cause active breakdown, giving you the power to create stable and effective formulas without the trial and error. Ready to quickly create effective skincare formulas? Discover Tagra's Cellucaps line by going to tagra.com/cellucaps. So, have you encapsulated yet? Now back to the show.
And in starting your own business, from what you're saying, there seems to be a lot of blurred lines between, that what has become more important to people, that home life separation, that work life separation. Mm-hmm. When you have your own business, do you get at all a work-life balance, or does your work just become your life, and that is how you perceive and view people that you work with, and how you spend your time?
Yeah, so this is interesting. We've done several interviews over the years, and this is one of the main questions that people will ask us. How do your whole work-life balance? How do you do that? So working with your wife, especially.
I was going to mention, I believe your wife, yes.
Right? And she runs all the money, so I got to be really careful. Well, she cut me off. Well, anyway, so balancing work life is really important. And I always had a rule, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, I'm your man. You call me up, you text me, you're getting an answer back within 5 minutes. So on the weekends, though, 9 to 5, once Monday, Friday, those 9 to 5s end, that phone goes off. And I shut down for those periods where it's my time and my family time. And so often when we first started, brought the business into the home, because that's where we started. We started in our home, in an office. 2 desks, my wife on one desk, me in the other, looking at each other. So the business was brought into the home, and there was nothing we could do about it. We had kids running in and out of the room all the time. But we had to put boundaries around the business. So we've done that with our personal life, and just saying, look, this is the time for our customers. This is the time for our work life. And we're stringent with that. We've never broken that rule in many, many years. So you have to do that as a business owner, especially if you're working with family members.
Yeah.
And we had our son-in-law at one point was in our business. So that made it even more challenging, because we were fighting that battle of, you're a major portion of our business, but you're also our son-in-law. So, so that was a part of the struggle too. But if you're intentional about it, and once again, you set the expectation, it's something you can navigate.
And, I guess that goes into, the advice that you would give to somebody that's looking to start a business. But, for me, for instance, a fear of starting my own business is that, I don't want it to be all consuming. And I see so often these startup founders that, there is this relentless, if I'm not doing work, I'm networking, and it feels like there isn't a separation. What advice would you give to somebody out there that's thinking of starting a business but has that hesitation of, well, for the next 4 years, I'm probably not going to vacation or see friends?
Well, let's start with the goals. So you've got your business. I'm a 30,000 foot guy, so I can look down the road, and I look down and I can see the big picture. So you don't have a successful business unless it's running itself. So that's really, really important to understand that. You don't have a successful business until it's running itself. So always work your goals, work your strategies to that point where your business can run itself. That's the big goal. And then the first goal is just start.
Yeah.
Don't let fear. So a lot of people will take a piece of paper and do the pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
Don't ever let fear on the one side of the page override any of the cons. It's the decision to make that step forward. Take that
Yeah.
first step, no matter what it is. And you'll see typically things fall in place afterwards. So take the step. Don't let fear be part of the solution or part of the problem that prevents you from starting. And then take that 30,000 mile high look at what the end picture should be. And when you know that you've achieved some success.
Yeah. I have worked in companies before where I think we used to call it the founder syndrome. And it was that, that fallacy that, well, if I'm not here, the business won't run, right? And I think that a lot of people that have their own companies operate under that assumption. And I don't know if it is something that, okay, you feel confident, but you're right. A business is only successful when it can run without without one single person destroying the entire infrastructure.
Right. Hire good people and trust them. Put the responsibility in their hands and trust them. We've got great people who work for us, and we totally trust them with our business. So it allows Ellen and I to, if we want to go here, we want to go away for a few days, we're fine. And we've reached that status the last 2 years. Like I said, we've worked really hard these last 2 to 3 years, especially with COVID. COVID's forced everyone to start thinking introspectively, right? And then everyone was quickly trying to learn Zoom and Teams and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, EES was on that a year before that. We had a thing called EES University, and we were online doing discussions with our customers, introducing them to new products. We had Zoom set up a year before COVID. So when we went into this thing, we actually moved right in. It was nice and smooth. Took most companies 3 to 6 months to transition just to get their technology in place to take care of their customers. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting to think back on that time, because I know now when I'm on a call, I like video on because I can see the person's reaction. I can respond accordingly. But when I think back to, let's say, 2017, I distinctly remember a coworker being on a call in a conference room and they had the video on. And I said, that's weird. And how quickly we've had to shift. But I do think there is an element to that, even though, and I don't know if you found this, that, it's changed how you interact with customers, right? You don't necessarily have to be on site anymore. It does still require that element of emotional response and emotional sensitivity. And so, how you communicate with the industry changed with kind of, COVID or evolving technologies? How are you seeing your communication either altered or enhanced?
Really, really interesting. We worked with a business coach years ago who used to say, in the ocean, there's 2 types of water. There's green water and there's blue water. And all the sharks are over in the green water and they're all fighting for the same amounts of business. He goes, let's pull EES over into the blue water. And COVID gave us a perfect opportunity to do that. And we set up what we thought was very innovative. And it's a hybrid model. So with COVID, everyone shut down, everything was Zoom, right? But we didn't have an opportunity for the customer to have that aesthetic part of the sales call, right? They couldn't touch anything. They couldn't, we're not in front of them showing them a product and how it feels and how it, the payoff and things like that. So what we decided to do was recreated what was called a mini sample kit, micro kit. So we would send these little samples, very small vials in a box, and we would pre-send them to the customer. Say, Jennifer, look, you're going to be getting these things. These are the things we want to talk to you about, our new things. So we're going to send you this micro kit. Hold on to it. And when you get it, and we have our Zoom call, we're going to take you through that micro kit so you can still have the aesthetic part of the presentation. That was really successful for us. So that was one thing that was really, really important to us and our customers. So we didn't lose that whole portion of the business, which is so important when you're introducing new products. Secondly, the hybrid model that we eventually came into coming out of COVID was we stayed with our Zoom and video calls.
Yeah.
But we went back slowly into sales calls, personal calls. But so years ago, everyone put people, if you were handling California, you had a California person. You had a Midwest, you had a Midwest person. We decided we're not doing any of that. We are not going the traditional, conventional wisdom anymore. We brought everybody in-house because we believe that the culture is more important than trying to maintain people outside the area. And maintaining culture and mission outside, from far away is very difficult. We brought everybody inside and we split up the territories, and now we send them into the territory. So all of our sales reps are based in New Jersey, and we have people who go into California, Arizona, the West Coast, and they'll go in 4 times a year, once a quarter, and they'll go in for about a week. So they get to see those customers 4 times a year, and a week at a time they're going. And we'll send them to the different regions, always bringing back home, always keeping them under the EES culture, always, pouring into them and, building them up rather than having them self-contained in different areas around the country, which I think when you do that, especially with COVID, when we had our California person, we just lost contact with them. Because COVID was so devastating for that person that it became very difficult for that person to continue to work because they were so just encompassed by the whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
So bringing people in house allowed us to really nurture them and work through really difficult situations. So that's what we do. I don't think there's anyone else out doing that. Every other company has people in that particular region. And it's funny because the last few principals pushed us on this. How can you make this work? How can you make this work? I said, you just need to work with us for a year. We've got a track record. At the end of the year, if you don't like what we're doing and you don't see the success, we'll shake hands and we'll remain friends. And it's funny, both of our new companies are just so happy with us.
Yeah.
And the particular model that we built up. So we're not going anywhere. We'll keep, because culture, mission, and what we do at ES is just so important to us. And that's where we're going. That's where we're staying.
I mean, for me, it was kind of a no-brainer in terms of I'm more apt to look at my calendar and say, yeah, I can jump on a call with you to review your portfolio. Then I've got to find a room. I've got to look at everyone's calendar. I've got to make sure, I've gone to the bathroom. I do all this, it's been, much more accessible. And I think, in terms of when you were talking about this as a sample kit, I actually enjoy getting those and trying them out beforehand because, there's the instantaneous, oh, this feels really nice. But I do like to use products over time and say, this is amazing. Or, you know what, like it felt really good on, but I'm not seeing, any difference. And it does allow me to have more pointed conversations where I'm like, I really like this. Can you tell me more about this? I did notice these things, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, it's how you've kind of embraced this is interesting and definitely aligned with what I think is my preferred method of communicating. So I'm surprised that some people are like, well, why don't you have a rep out here?
Yeah. And it's interesting with the micro kids. So we do a lot of we share a lot of information right up front. We'll ask a lot of questions. Hey, Jennifer, what are you working on? You working on lipsticks? Okay, great. We've got a brand new color company that we're working with. Hey, we got a brand new wax company we're working with. So we find out, we do a lot of digging up front, spend a few minutes digging up front to make sure that what we're sending you is going to be really pertinent to what you're working on. We're not going to be and we've worked with principals like this where they come in with their computer and they sit in front of you and you get a 45-minute presentation on where the company started, how they dug this hole in the ground in Germany, and created this processing plant over there, and we don't do that because we understand how important your time is, and we want to get right to what your needs are, and that's our focus too.
Great. Has there been anything unexpected in terms of insights that you've gained from conversations with customers?
Customers are great because they're typically telling you what's going on inside the industry. They're telling you, hey, Ed, I'm having a hard time getting this product, getting that. But customers will tell us too when we're not doing something right. It's very rare, but we have to listen to our customers when they're telling us something great, and when they're telling us we've not done well in a certain area. So customers will be very honest, and we demand that from not only our customers but from the people that we work with. So we really appreciate that honesty and that feedback. And yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of, the market is constantly changing. There's constantly new regulations and constant new things that are, we'll get updates on companies that have just sold to another company, which is really important for our reps to understand that who's buying who and who's really in charge of that project. So a lot of information, if you're listening, is there through your customers.
Yeah. And with, I've noticed a lot of contract manufacturers seeming to buy other contract manufacturers. So you're starting to get these, they own multiple sites. How do you see these changes in, let's say, who owns who, or even, a lot of those indie brands that get acquired? How does that change the future of your business? How do you see the future of the ingredient supplier in the cosmetic industry changing and evolving over the next couple of years?
So another one of our principles in our business is we don't care if you're a mom and pop, you're making something in your garage, or if you're Estee Lauder, you're going to be treated the same way with us. So we treat every one of our customers, no matter their size, with dignity, respect, honesty, and just try to provide them with the same type of service. But yes, indie brands are having a major effect. A lot of companies have suffered as a result of the indie brands becoming, as dynamic as they are.
Yeah.
And you see that they're dynamic and doing well because the larger companies are buying them up too. So the indie brands have made a huge change on the business. So it's forcing our reps to not focus just on the big guys. It's forcing our reps to constantly have their ear to the marketplace. And we do that through LinkedIn. We do that through Prospector. We do that through a few different ways.
Yeah. And with the emergence of these independent brands that have much lower, let's say, volume that they're producing, how does that shape the MOQs and kind of the ingredients that you carry, right? Because commodity ingredients become a little bit tougher, right? Because you're looking to sell metric tons. How does that shape a little bit of that portfolio strategy?
Yeah, so what we'll do is, especially with a small company starting out, if they don't have the possibility of using an MOQ, what we'll do is we'll sample them a little bit extra. So if our sample is normally 8 ounces and they only need a pound to get the product line piloted and through the lab work and things like that, we'll provide them with a pound. So rather than forcing them to the 25 kilo MOQ, we'll try to sample them up front as much as we can until they can get to that place where they can purchase that 25 kilos or 5 kilos, whatever the MOQ. Usually our MOQs are decent enough where it's not going to affect the customer too much. We like to be in the area of 5 kilos for most things, 1 kilo for some things. Our principals will repack from time to time when we have those special situations, especially if we're working with a larger company and they need some additional early packing. So we'll do that. And so we always work around what the need is. We never say to a customer, hey, it's our MOQ and take it or leave it.
Great. So we are coming up on time, and I know that I've asked a bunch of what advice. But in closing, what is the single thing that you want to emphasize as advice that you would give to somebody who's thinking of entering the cosmetic industry and or starting their own business?
Care about people. People before product. That's the most important thing. They say the three P's are people, process, and product. If you don't have those three things, you're not going to be successful. But if you care about people and you let them know that you care about them, usually you're going to be you can be pretty successful in what you're doing. And that goes for not just your own internal staff, that's for your external people that you're working with, your customers and things like that. And fortunately, over the years, being in the industry for 40 years, I've had time after time after time where I've had opportunities to care about people. I'll tell you a quick story. A very large customer. I was going into R&D one day and introducing some new products, and she sat across the table from me. And calling on her for a number of years, I could just tell something was wrong. She was not in the meeting. She wasn't present. Her mind was wandering. So I finally said to her, what's going on? There's something bothering you. So what's going on? She just found out she put a promotion. She put in for a promotion to go overseas to take care of her mom. Her mom was overseas, was not coming to the United States. She was very, very sick. So she was she was looking for the promotion to be transferred overseas to take care of her mom. She found out that morning that she was denied that. So she was not going to be able to go and tend to her mom. And she just burst out in tears.
Yeah.
And I just put all the work on the side. I said, we'll talk about this other time. Let's just talk this through. And I had seen her a couple months later, and she just said, Ed, I just want to let you know, I just really appreciate what you did, because you put the product, you put all that stuff aside, and you just cared about me. So it's just a perfect example of just caring about people. And I don't know if I need to say anything else. That's really the most important thing.
Yes, and I hope everyone listening does take that to heart, because I think that is a great message, and I'd like to see more of it from those around out in the world. Well, thank you for being on this episode.
Well, I appreciate your time. It's great, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.